Welcome to the Redlands Camera Club Summer 2022 Digital Competition. I'm Carl Detro, the competition chair. Our scorekeepers tonight are Judith Sparhawk, John Williams, and Bruce Benet. We got 38 images entered this evening, coming from 20 member photographers. Frank, will you please introduce our judges?
Yes, our judges tonight, alphabetically by shoe size. Our first, Kip Cothran. Kip has long been active in the Professional Photographers of San Diego County, Professional Photographers of the Inland Empire, and Professional Photographers of California, and has taken many, many prizes in competition in those organizations. Next up, we have Bob Fletcher. Bob has been a photographer longer than he cares to admit, and lately his efforts have been very, very rewardingly directed in teaching workshops. He has several coming up, and I hope that during the evening we have a chance to ask Bob a question or two about his upcoming workshops. And Rick Sforza is a photographer who distinguished himself in service to the U.S. Navy, during which time he attended Syracuse University, the Navy photojournalism program, and then he exercised his photojournalistic chops as a press photographer in Southern California and as a photo editor for several newspapers. And during that time, he also distinguished himself as a photojournalist in the Air Force Reserve. It's a real privilege to have all three of these gents with us tonight. And I know we're going to see some excellent wisdom in their scores and their comments.
Thank you, Frank. Our competition categories are the usual ones: people, places, animals, close-up, photojournalism, open miscellaneous, and a special competition, which is category X. Category X for this competition is inspiration. Here's an example of what inspiration means. This was entered in a previous competition and was the inspiration for this category X this month. The rules for the inspiration category require that the image meet the size and definition criteria of all the other categories and must be original to the entrant. So the entrant has to have made the photograph. The inspirational quote can be from another author, but should be attributed if known. Anonymous is acceptable, and of course, if the quotation is something that the entrant made up, it has to be anonymous or unknown, because we don't want the entrant's identity identified during the competition. We've had the judges introduced. We now have 3 images here. If the judges would please take a look at them, and to make sure that your monitors are up to speed for this competition. Seems like they always are, but we always take a look at them. This is the first. Look good, judges?
Yes.
Yes.
And the second?
Yes.
Looks good.
And the third?
That's 100.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Ready to go.
Okay, we'll take a look at the entries as is our tradition. We take a look at each of the entries, just a quick 5-second look at each one. Some of the images have a lot of words on them, and we won't stop for long enough to read the entries. It's mostly just to give you a feel for how many entries we got and what they look like. And in the middle, we will also stop for a 5-minute break. So here are the entries for the 2022 summer competition. My apologies, my computer seems to be hanging up a little bit too. Okay, judges, please enter your scores in the chat. And then Frank will give us a total when we're done. Okay, the first image is in the places category. Joshua Tree under the stars. Joshua Tree under the stars. Judges, please score.
Okay, 77.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, this one goes to Kip.
I scored this image of 78. It's a bit pixelated and the background is popped in. It looks like it's been cut out and just dropped a new background into the galaxy into the background. Even the stars are pixelated at the bottom of the image as well. So the sky doesn't look totally sharp. So I don't know if it's just over 20 seconds, but it just doesn't look totally sharp, or if it's just slightly out of focus, but it does look underexposed in the bottom left hand and bottom portion of the around the tree down at the bottom. I scored it a 78.
Hey, thanks, Kip. The next image is in the places category, Alien Throne in Golden Hour. Alien Throne in Golden Hour.
$76.
Okay, I scored it a 76. It looks unnatural to me. I mean, if you look at the shadows on the left side compared to the right side, the shadows are different. The sunset colors are blown out. It's just looks like it was a highly manipulated image after the fact. And I would say that it's, to me, it's probably almost a full stop overexposed.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Next is from the animal category, Lizard Lounge. Lizard Lounge.
$77.
And this one goes to Rick.
Okay. First off, I'll say I appreciate the shallow depth of field on this, because it does bring my attention to the lizard's face. But in that same plane of focus, his front paw is sharp. I almost think his front paw is more sharp than his eye on this lizard. So I keep kind of going back to the paw when I should be looking at his eye. And I think part of that is that it's really blown out in the front and toward the back, and his face falls into shadow. So you sort of lose that main point of interest in this photo. I should be wanting to look in the lizard's eye, but I keep getting drawn away.
Okay, thank you, Rick. The next one is the first in our inspiration category, core values of the Navy.
$81.
Scores an 81. Kip.
I scored this image an 83. I probably shouldn't have gone that high, but I love the image. I love the concept that's behind it. I love what everything stands for. I love the detail in the sword itself, and I love the wrapping arounds of everything that's there. What held me back a lot, well, I say a lot, even though I scored an 83, is the blown out handle. So the handle at the top, the white, where you would hold on to the sword, is too hot. And then also the corner, the top corner on the right-hand side is also too hot. You brought those down, this could be an 85, 86 image. And but very nice presentation, honor, courage, and commitment.
Next image in the inspiration category also is called motivation.
$79.
79, and that one goes to Bob.
You know, I like the image. I scored it a 79. The image itself is very straightforward. It's very flat lighting, but the whiskers are sharp, the nose is sharp. You look at it, the eyes draw you into it. The words are wonderful, but it's very, I'm not quite sure how I would say it. It's very symmetrical, and to me, almost overly symmetrical. I would love to take it into the 80 category, but if it had just a little bit more into it, I could easily take it into 81 or 82.
Okay, thank you, Bob. The next image is in the close-up category, a rose. a rose.
'78.
8. Rick, that is yours.
Okay, you know what, I scored at a 77. There's, I mean, first of all, I'll say, I like the idea. I like that you've dropped your background out and that you've isolated the rows. Having said that, I think, first of all, you want to look at your subject and pick a better subject. This rose has seen better days. The image is really, the contrast, it doesn't have contrast. It's very muddy. I can't, if you had not put those test photos up before, I would be asking if it was my monitor, and it's not. There's no sharpness in here. And those are my two really big points. I think that it's muddy and it's not sharp. And I would look for better light on this and also find a fresher rose, if you will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rick. The next image is in the inspiration category. Band. Band, B-A-N-N-E-D, band.
'78.
And that one goes to Kip.
I kind of like this concept. I like all the books that are up on the top, just reading them all and seeing the titles. Nothing that I read in the past, but I do recognize Obama. And I like the kids hiding, pretty much hiding their noses, hiding their faces. It's a nice little story. But the light on the books is just pretty much too flat on the top part, just right up there. I don't know what I would do to make it more directional light, maybe on the kids. Something going off to the side, one way or the other. Then you got a couple blown spots on the center kid as well in this book, which is white, obviously. So I scored it a 78, and but I like the concept.
Thank you, Kip. The next image is in the inspiration category, fairy tales.
'79.
79. This one goes to Bob.
I scored it an 83, which might be a little on the high side, but I really like it. I looked at the detail in it. I'm looking at the fire is a little blown out. I'd like to see that brought down a little bit more. But the work that went into making this happen, it shows a lot of work. It shows a lot of ingenuity. I look at the antlers on the top, and just below that, you see a blue eye. I wonder how they got the blue eye. Is that a glass eye? I look at the intricacy of the image and what's written in there, and it spoke to me. I wouldn't say that it is a most outstanding image, but I look at the intricacy and the work that went in to make it happen, and I scored it an 83.
Thank you, Bob. Next image is in the close-up category, pomegranate buds. Pomegranate buds.
82.
82. And this one is Rick's.
Thank you. I give this an 83. I really liked it. I love the where the pomegranate is opening up there. This has a otherworldly quality to it. I know what it is, yet that sort of those tendrils coming out of the opening of that pomegranate helps give it that sort of otherworldly quality. I like the color in it. The color, I would say, almost looks a little bit overworked, but in this case, I think it works for the photo. And yeah, I gave it an 83.
Thank you, Rick. Next image is inspiration category again. The daylilies. The daylilies.
'82.
And 82. Kip.
I scored this image an 84. I like this image a whole lot, especially with all the backlighting, backlight through it. And I love the presentation and how keeping the flowers or the leaves inside the frame on most of it, except for the bottom where it crosses over. Very nice presentation, nice text on the quote, and very easy to see. The rest of it's just beautiful all the way through.
Thank you, Kip. The next image in the places category, Arch Rock Under the Stars. Arch Rock Under the Stars.
'78.
78 goes to Bob.
I scored this a 78. It's a nice image. I wish the lighting on the arch wasn't as flat as it is. It almost looks like it's either painted with light straight on, or a flash straight on, possibly very weak flash. It would be nice if it had a little more presentation on the texture that is within that arch. And the exposure is fairly long. I'm guessing between 25, 30 seconds, because you can see the stars have started to do trails a little bit. They're not crisp and sharp. You see the stars dragging a bit.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And the next image in photojournalism category, Enslaved Quarters, Master's Rule. Enslaved Quarters, Master's Rules.
'79.
79. Rick.
I like this photo. I give it an 80. There's a lot going on in here. It's very intriguing. And I just keep looking at it. For looking at a lot of photos and in my life, you can sort of gauge, for me, the quality or the interest of a photo by how long you look at it, or if you come back to it. This is an image that I want to come back to and look at. I think I would have given it a higher score. It needs a little more contrast. It's just kind of flat, and I want to see some pop. And I would suggest take this back into Photoshop and give it a little bit more pop. I don't see a true black in there or a true white. I can see that that shaft of light underneath the table, it's going to go specular, and I think that that's okay. There's food. It looks like probably pork. Yeah, like fatback sitting on top of that bench, and that might go specular as well. But I mean, you can work with this image and get it to pop. I would say good job for seeing this. It's a very interesting photo.
Thank you, Rick. The next image is in the inspiration category. Accomplishment starts with try. Accomplishment starts with try.
'80.
Score is an 80. This is Kip's.
I scored this image in 81. I like this image. It's a little. I might have brought up the contrast a little bit more to make it pop as well. But I like all the action with all the water coming over. There's some hot spots on the water, but that's okay. If I were the maker, I would try to get rid of that text. That text is not. I like the inspiration part, but the font on that text is growing into the text above it. So that's distracting to me, but I do like the image. I like the way the lady is riding the wave, and she's got a wave that's almost taller than she is. So nice work.
And a scoring correction, the tail of the tape says it's actually an 81, rounded up.
The next image in the places category, Willow Tunnel. Willow Tunnel.
'80.
Scores an 80. And this one goes to Bob.
I scored it a 79. It's a nice image, but a couple things kept me from scoring it an 80. This would be a perfect image for an HDR because I look at the end of the tunnel and the sky is blown out. All the light is blown out there. And if you'd taken an exposure for that and blended it into this, also the top, I would say 1/3 could be vignetted and sort of brought down a little bit. It shouldn't be the same exposure as what is within the tunnel itself. It needs to be a little darker on the top.
Okay, thank you. Next image is in the animal category. Freedom. Freedom.
'83.
83. This one goes to Rick.
I gave this an 83. I really like this photo. I really appreciate that the maker gave this eagle someplace to fly into, which helps give it a sense of flight to me when I'm looking at it. The background, I'm wondering if that's sort of that left upper side of the print could come down just a little bit. I don't really have much to critique on this other than to say good things. I'm really enjoying it. I just think it's lovely and well done.
Thank you, Rick. Next image in the close-up category, chamomile cradle. Chamomile crater. Cradle. Chamomile cradle, as in the tea.
78.
Scores a 78. Kip,
I scored this image a 77. And there are, all the white up there is blown out. Pretty much all the way through the image. That needs to come down. The only thing that's in focus is the bee. Everything else is just really soft and moody. I don't know if you need all that space where all the words are. If you should crop it in more and move the words down. I like the words, but the image is distracting with the white, and it's just too hot for me.
thank you, Kip. Next image is in the animal category. Look what the stork brought. Look what the stork brought.
$77.
Scores a 77. This one goes to Bob.
I scored this a 78. I like the image, but there's so many things that are distracting to it. It looks very pixelated, almost like it was zoomed in too much, like maybe it was shot with not a very long lens. It was cropped in. The white feathers are blown out. It's not a bad image. It's just not an 80.
Okay, thank you, Bob. The next image is in the inspiration category. Perfection will do. Perfection will do.
$81.
81. That's Rick's.
I wanted to go higher with this, but I couldn't. I think the blue and gold and the blue background and the white smoke trails. I mean, everything has come together here for a really great photo. I like the photo. It looks like the maker was asking a lot of their image. I'm guessing this was there was probably a lot more of the frame here, and they were really pulling it up. I think it was a combination of you needed a longer lens and less of a crop in Photoshop or Lightroom, whatever you're working in, because the jets are starting to sort of get blurry. And I'm thinking they were probably sharp in the original image, but it's a great idea. I mean, I would have given it something higher if the image was holding together a little bit better, but I love the way that the jets have created their own leading line. And I'm not a big fan of topography on photos, but this, I think that this works. It's the right font, and it's short. Perfection will do. I think it all works. I would have liked to have given it something higher, but I think it's a great concept.
And remind us what you did give it, please, Rick.
I gave it an 80.
Thank you.
And the final score was 81.
Yes.
The next next entry is places category. Inspiring Rainbow Falls. Inspiring Rainbow Falls.
$82.
82. Kip,
I scored this image an 81. I love the image. I love the long exposure. And I love the how tall that person is for and the image standing on the rock. That just shows how massive that waterfall is. I also love all the trails coming down the side of the waterfall. Very nice image, very nice composition. What is holding me back is the shadow area on next to the by the tree on the left hand side, and I think that's just too dark over there. Open up those shadows, that'd be great. And I think the water is, even though you want the water to be not bright white, I think it's a little bit too dark as well. So I think the waterfall just a little bit lighter possibly, but there's all those shadows and distractions on the left hand side.
hey, thank you, Kip. That brings us to our 5-minute break. We've been at this for an hour, so it's good, a good point to break. So we'll start back up again in 5 minutes.
I think Carl left on the recording, Bob.
It's still recording, yes. We'll just edit it out.
Bob still doing a lot of freelancing for Canon.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, I am still working for them, but they don't have a lot going on right now. We're doing workshops for a couple of different groups, I guess you would say. Mostly Iceland. We're working on one to Greenland. We're working on one probably 2024, and Russian icebreaker. We're taking it to the Arctic and photographing polar bears. We're working on putting that together. But yeah, Canon is just slowly getting back into the marketplace, and you know, you'll find a lot of the camera manufacturers that were at the large events, they're just not doing what they used to do.
Is it safe to say that sea changes in the industry are still taking place?
Yes, they are. A lot of changes, personnel changes in at Canon, I know, and at Nikon. Both of them have had a lot of personnel changes, a lot of retirements. Some of them not their own choice. Some of them just felt it was a good time to retire. There's a lot of marketplaces that they're looking at that they chose not to enter back into. You know, mirrorless has made such a huge difference in the photography market. Most of you are probably aware that almost all the manufacturers have focused almost exclusively on mirrorless. Nobody is producing, almost nobody is producing DSLRs anymore. You know, they're going to sell out of the inventory that they have, and that'll be the end of it. And I know a lot of people are buying up used DSLR lenses, stuff like that, which is great. But the problem is that 5 years, 10 years from now, if they need repair, there won't be any parts for them. You know, so, you know, I'm recommending to a lot of people to, if they're looking at making a change, to look very seriously at mirrorless, you know, any manufacturer. I mean, they're all good. You know, they're all of their R&D funds are going in that direction.
Isn't it true that inherent in the design of the mirrorless cameras that there is theoretically more resolution you can get from a lens than you can from even the very best SLR optics?
Well, absolutely. You don't, one of the advantages of mirrorless is that the rear element of the lens is almost right up against the sensor because you don't have that box,
The
that
mirror,
mirrored box in there.
Right.
So, you know, it has less air to travel through, and by design, it's going to be sharper. Now, the people that are using adapters to use their, like in Canon, their EF lenses, even their L series lenses, they will be just as sharp as they were on your DSLRs, but they will not be as sharp as the RF lenses. And that's the same is true with the Nikon, the Sony. You know, if you adapt them, they will be as sharp as they were on your DSLRs, but they will not be as sharp as the lenses that are designed for the mirrorless. Just basic design is going to make a huge difference. And also, I know weight is a consideration. In some cases, there's not huge differences. I have two of the R5s, which are honestly almost as heavy as my 1DXs. But the difference is going to come in the glass. I have a 1200 millimeter on order,
Oh,
and the weight of that 1200 millimeter is actually about the same weight as my 600 is, about 7.5 pounds.
wow.
I know Kip just bought a 600 millimeter f4 for his Nikon, and I think that weighs
11.
what, Kip, 12, 13 pounds,
11 pounds.
11 pounds. Okay, it's
Heavy.
heavy.
It's heavy.
Yeah, and you know, you wouldn't think that 4 pounds, 4.5 pounds is that much, but when you try to hold it up without a monopod or a tripod, it is. It's a huge difference. You know, and Kip's a strong guy. I mean, he's certainly capable of hand holding something, but when you're shooting, you know, bald eagles that are flying reasonably fast, you can't hand hold that for 15 minutes.
I was thinking about giving it back and getting the Z9.
I am hearing the most incredible things about that Z9. I don't know anybody that has one that is not just overly thrilled with it. It's way beyond their expectations.
Well, I think we're ready to get back to work here. Can everybody hear me and see my shared screen? 5-minute break?
We can.
5x5.
Yep.
Okay, then let us continue on with the next image in the places category.
You need John to see that?
In the places category, incoming waves. Incoming waves.
$80.
Comes out to an 80. Bob.
Well, I guess I'm the bad guy on this. I scored it a 78. I wanted to like it more. Some of the things that, well, the one big thing that kept me from scoring it higher is it has no contrast to it. There's no, it's almost like it's a single, I don't know, it's flat. I guess it's just flat looking to me. Now, I'm assuming that it's a longer exposure because the waves have come in and they've moved and that. So, or it could be fog. I don't know. But it just seems sort of lifeless to me. I wish it had a little more contrast. Maybe the sky was a little darker, a little more stormy looking. I want to like it more. And I think with a little bit of work, it can easily be an 81 or 82 for me.
Thank you, Bob. Next to the animal category, Old Red. Old Red.
$77.
77. And this one goes to Rick.
I gave this photo a 76. I like it. There's a number of things about it though, and I'll start from the outside and work my way in. I would lose the frame on this. I don't think that this frame is helping the photo. The big thing that I'm looking at on here is that it is soft. It is really soft, and that really hurts the photo. You know, I tend to really want to engage in anthropomorphization here on this old fella. There's a lot of character in this animal, and that's what I really like about this photo. The lack of focus on it, though, really hurts it. There are just some beautiful details in this animal's coat. It's just gorgeous, and if it were sharp, I think it would be just stunning. And if I did not see it, I gave it a 76.
Okay, thank you, Rick. The next image is in the inspiration category. Magic. Magic.
'80.
Or is it 80? This one goes to Kip.
Scored this image an 80. I love the presentation, you know, white on white with the color of the cap and gown as your liner. The text, the same color. The creativity of her with the confetti blowing it up in the air. And it just, the text is filling the frame very nicely, and the seniors having a great time. So very nice presentation. Lighting is fine, and looks pretty good. Looks great.
In the open miscellaneous category, we have Lady in Procida Stairway. Lady in Procida Stairway.
'76.
76. Bob.
I scored it a 75. It's a nice image. Couple of things that could improve it. If you had turned her 180 degrees and had her leaning against that wall on the right, she would have full light on her face. Right now, most of her face is shadow, and that's not good. I'm assuming by the title that she's the subject, and the subject shouldn't be all in shadow. The horizon wasn't necessary. The blue ocean is very blue. It's distracting from the subject, which is the lady on the stairs. And, you know, it's a good snapshot, but it's not any more than that.
Thank you, Bob. Next image, photojournalism. Remembering. Remembering.
'80.
Scores an 80. And this one goes to Rick.
I like this photo. I like the subject matter. There's a couple things that are I would like to score it a little bit higher, but there are a couple things here that are distracting for me. One is the time of day. It looks like it's noon or pretty close to noon. Maybe earlier in the day or later in the day, a more dramatic light, I think, would be better. I like the way that the flags are sort of backlit here. I didn't miss that figure up on the ridge, which I think is kind of nice. And I get that the trees on either side of the frame are sort of bordering it, but I don't think that you need that those trees in there. This is all about the flags here and those graves. And I would sort of bring down the sky a little bit. It's almost too hot to, if you bring that sky down, kind of push your eye back down to stay in this field of flags. The other thing that I might suggest is a longer lens would have been kind of cool to give you some compression on these flags, and that figure up on the hill would have been a little bit more prominent and sort of haunting, if you will. But I like this photo, and I gave it an 80.
Thank you, Rick. In the animal category, egrets negotiating. Egrets negotiating.
'81.
81, Kip.
I scored this image an 80. I took it up to 80. It was at 79, but I like the image. It's just the wrong time of day to photograph it. You got a lot of hot white spots, highlights that are blown out. I do like their expression with each other as they're fighting. And I would like a presentation on this one. I like this. I would love to have a presentation around this image. We haven't talked about that at all, but I do like this image as far as the subject matter goes, but I think it's just a little bit too hot.
Thank you, Kip. In the places category, uniquely created. Uniquely created.
'79.
79 to Bob.
I scored this a 79. I like the image, but a couple of things that were really distracting to me. I think that's a yucca tree. One is it's way too hot. It should be a lot more subtle. And the horizon, everything seems to lean to the right to me. Even the hills in the back, the rocks that are standing there, it could have been leveled a little bit more and it would have been a little more appealing. The exposure in the sky, not bad. I'd like to see a little bit more of it. But I think the painting, if that's a painting with light effect, it could be brought down a lot. And I think it would really improve the image.
Thank you, Bob. Next, in the animal category, beauty in the marshland. Beauty in the marshland.
'80.
That scores an 80. And it goes to Rick.
I like this photo. I love the contrast. I love the pop of colors in it. It is lacking some sharpness in the eye and the beak of this bird. It looks like the focus is maybe in its feathers down toward its tail feathers right there. And that's kind of distracting because my eye is travels back down to that sharp spot. That patch of white on his head is could come down just a little bit. But other than that, I like it. I gave it an 81.
In the places category, thank you, Rick. Sunrise over Bryce. Sunrise over Bryce.
Unanimous, 78.
78, Kip.
I scored this a 78. I like the effect of the sun, just seeing light rays coming through. You got The sun is too bright still at this point, and there's just not a lot of detail, light direction in the overall image. So it's pretty much underexposed, except for the tree itself. You know, that backlit of the tree, that's really nice. But everything else that's in the image is pretty much lost. Too much sky in the image, and just no contrast, no pop, no light, no direction.
In the people category, thank you, Kip. The people category, man of the Renaissance. Man of the Renaissance.
'81.
81, Bob.
I scored this an 83. I like the image. I went right to his eyes immediately, his green eyes. It's sharp. It's well lit. It's flat lighting, but you see detail in it. One thing that to me that was, I wouldn't say it was distracting, but it's very symmetrical again. Had he been turned a little bit, or maybe not quite dead center, I think would have been more appealing to the eye. But it's a very strong image.
Thank you, Bob. Next image in the photojournalism category, budget fishing. Budget fishing.
'79.
This one goes to Rick.
I like this photo a lot. I gave it a 79. I wanted to give it, I wanted to give it a higher score. It's, but there's no point of focus. Well, there is a point of focus, but when I say there's no point of focus, I can't find anything sharp in this photo. And I would probably bring down the top a little bit. It just kind of, it's sort of odd to me that it's real light on top, almost like if this were a strip of film, I would say the top of the film was underexposed. So I would either crop that down or burn that down a little bit. I might even try a different crop on this to put that guy on that paddleboard in a different place. But there's just kind of, there's a humor, there's a whimsy to it that initially drew me to this photo. I think, again, as always, good job for seeing the image. That's really the first step, right?
Thank you, Rick. The next image is in the people category, fire eater. Fire eater.
'80.
Scores an 80. This one goes to Kip.
I scored this image a 79. As far as the fire goes, that's pretty awesome. Should have had some Tabasco instead. That would have been probably cooler than that fire. What I don't like about the image is that his poker is going right through his eye. So you can't see the other, the other eye. But there is definitely, I like the smoke and the detail in the flame. The detail in the flame is amazing. And then the smoke hitting the outside is great as well. I just don't like the distraction of the poker going in his eye.
Thank you, Kip. Next image in the inspiration category, stress. Stress.
'78.
78. And this is Bob's.
I scored it a 79. It's a whimsical type of image. I probably would have titled it Stress or the Lack Thereof. It's cropped a little tighter than I would like. The treatment's nice on it. There was some thought in it, and certainly some thought in making the title and making it creative. But the image itself is very flat looking. It is in focus. I don't see a lack of focus on it or lack of sharpness. But again, I scored it a 79.
In the inspiration category, thank you, Bob. Inspiration category, success is the title. Success.
'84.
Rick,
I like this photo. I gave it an 85. I like just about everything I'm seeing here. Timing, the timing, timing is everything here. We know we know where that fish is headed, right? And I love the sort of the crop that you have. I'm guessing this is an egret of some kind. The curvature of its neck, the way its neck is moving, and where it's cropped in this photo I think that's an element of grace and beauty that is in this photo, an element of grace and beauty and wildlife that I really like. It's sharp. I love the shallow depth of field. The things in the background are appropriately dropped out. I could maybe just put a little bit more contrast in that. I'd love to see that yellow on the beak and the yellow on the eye pop just a little bit more. But other than that, good job. Well done.
thank you, Rick. In the people category, finding oneself. Finding oneself.
'78.
78. Kip,
I scored this a 78. I love the storytelling around it when she's just out there in the middle of the forest, just painting her picture and seeing life as it is. But the image itself is crunchy. It's really it's pixelated, and it's like over processed to me. It's got a bunch of crunchiness in it. I think it's 12 o'clock, probably right around 12 o'clock when it's photographed as well. So direction of light, is not a good thing. And her palette that she's painting on is overexposed, as well as her gifts or her belongings on the grass as well.
thank you, Kip. In the inspiration category, the road less traveled. The road less traveled.
'79.
And this one is Bob's.
I like the image. I think it shows some creativity in seeing the image. A couple of things that would have improved it, I think. A little more contrast would have been nice. But the first 3 steps on the bottom, it would have been nice to include all of the steps. If you'd just taken a step to the right, 6 inches or a foot, you could have included those. And also the fact that the detour sign with the closed up chair on the top is sort of cool in the fact that it's a load rest traveled. But there's a detour ahead. I think that could have been emphasized a little more, but finding the image and seeing it and photographing it, I think takes a fair amount of looking and seeing something. To me, it's almost the image within the image. It would have been easy to walk by it, look at it, and say, "Oh, that's nice," but then to look at it and photograph it and put in the inspiration of the road less traveled. I think it's creative, but I scored it. What did I score this? An 80.
Thank you. The next image is in the places category, minarets at first light.
'78.
78. Rick,
I like this photo. I like the idea of it. I love the topography down there. I think that's really kind of classy, the way that the minaret is laid out like that and sort of spread out the length of the photo. Couple things. The sky is a little flat, and the image needs a little bit more contrast, and it needs some sharpness as well. I'm looking on my screen and it doesn't look sharp anyplace. I know the time of day that this is that everything tends to go a little bit orange, but that sky is still blue. And I think you could probably bring it down a little bit, make it pop. I gave it a 78.
thank you, Rick. In the people category, 90-year-old swim champ. 90-year-old swim champ.
'78.
78. And this one goes to Kip.
Scored this 78. Props to the gentleman that's out there swimming at 98 years old. Wrong time of the day. I think it's you need some light in the eyes. You got a hot spot on the top of the cap. I'd love to have that pool just really pop at me. So a little bit more contrast, probably. But like I said, congratulations on the gentleman out there still doing his thing.
Thank you, Kip. In the places category, foggy night in Morro Bay. Foggy night in Morro Bay.
'80.
An 80, Bob.
I scored this a 79. I like the image. I love the red on the towers. The color that comes from the red lights on the smoke coming out of the stove, the smokestacks. One of the things that my eye kept going back to is that bush on the lower left. It's an anchor point, but it takes up 15-20% of the image. And there's too much of it. If you had cropped the bottom portion, maybe a fifth of the way up, it would have been much less distracting to me. It's also a bit flat. It would have been nice if the clouds had been maybe moving a little bit more or brought down a little bit. With a little bit of work, it could be a really strong image.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you to everybody who participated, all of our entrants, our three judges, Kip Corcoran, Bob Fletcher, and Rick Sforza. Frank for handling the scoring, manual scoring, and Judith and John for helping me with the score gathering. If you'll send your scores to me within the next day or so, I'll get everything in the computer and we'll be ready to present the awards here in 2 weeks.
And there is no need to break a tie.
That
Carl,
is correct.
Carl, before we go, can I ask Bob where he's planning on his next workshops going?
Let me look here real quick. Let's see. White Pocket, I'm headed to White Pocket August 1st to the 5th. Then we're doing Iceland in September, Columbia River Gorge in October, Moab in the end of October, Bald Eagles in Coeur d'Alene in November, back to Iceland in November, Bosque del Apache, Skagit River Bald Eagles in December, Yellowstone in January. We've got a few workshops and you should go on some of them, Kip. Bring that 600. Yellowstone in January, you would love that. Some of those
I've been there.
snow-covered buffaloes.
I've been there.
It's
in
a little
January.
cold,
It was cold.
little cold. I
It
know
was
you
cold.
love cold.
Yes, I do.
Does anyone who's been involved with this, and especially our judges, have any general comments about this competition that we should record before I stop the recording?
You know, I was going to say at the beginning when you did the quick run through, I have to tell you, I've been judging Redlands for a long time. And over time, I've seen a lot of improvement in the images that your people have been doing. You guys have done a terrific job in educating your people, helping them to perfect the craft of photography. And I have seen some major improvement in the overall scores. Well, maybe the overall image is better. I think for me, I have started in some sense judging this on a little bit more of a professional level, where I used to judge it a little bit more on an amateur level. And most of your people are not amateur level people anymore. They have improved dramatically.
You
Absolutely.
like the term enthusiast, Bob.
Okay, that's a good term.
Thank you, Bob. That's kind of the way I have seen the Camera Club grow. I've been a member since '08, which is of course nowhere near long as Frank has been here, but I have seen a huge amount of growth, especially in myself.
I think Frank is one of the charter members of this club.
1896.
Yeah.
I still have the flash powder to prove it. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you everyone very much. I'm going to stop the recording now.
And thank you, Carl, for all the work behind the scenes that you do.
Yes.